He didn't have time for writing for a while. The boy was famous. Truth to tell, the press wouldn't usually have taken much interest in the story. Every few months, someone or other was breaking a song into the bottom hundreds of the canon, shoving aside others only just put in. And it may have been the 914th best song in the world, it was also the 87th worst, and that didn't sound half so impressive. But the boy was 12 years old. That was something which caught the listener's imagination, and the song was re-recorded in different styles to sate the interest: reggae, rap, a cappella. The boy was referred to as a genius in the making, a wunderkind, a veritable Mozart. Mozart was a famous composer. He'd managed to get no less than 14 songs into the top 1,000. He was really very good indeed. At school, he'd been so dreamy, he'd barely made an impression. But now he was the epitome of romance. He'd won the hearts of all the girls, and quite a few of the teachers as well. One or two got quite a trouble over him. He barely noticed. He looked on in some bemusement as his classmates wept for his love, as his form mistress was disciplined by a tribunal and put on probation. He wasn't at the school for long. He had no need for geography or physics or gym anymore, and the boy could now afford a special education where he could focus more upon his gifts. He learned how to write in musical notation. He learned to pick apart the songs he'd once enjoyed so uncritically. He wrote a few songs, and of course everyone in academe buzzed with expectation what fresh classics might be concocting under their very noses. The boy always destroyed these efforts, saying that they weren't good enough. He wasn't yet ready to give a second masterpiece to the world. By the time he graduated, his original song had slipped down the rankings and was now 933rd. One of his fellow students at last managed to catch his attention and then to catch his heart. She was the envy of all her friends and received a couple of death threats from the most jealous. As they walked down the aisle, with his mummy and daddy looking so proud, and the boy no longer quite a boy, no longer quite a wunderkind, the song that was played was his own. The bride had chosen it specially. She said it had been that song that had made her fall in love with him. Of course it had been. At this point, it was the 947th best love song in the world. The fact was, the boy didn't like the song very much. No matter how much it was digitally remastered or re-remastered, he heard it for what it was, a melange of other people's songs that had just got lucky. There was love in it, and it was his love, but it wasn't the love it pretended to be. A love for the love that others feel is still a borrowed love. It's hardly worth loving at all. The boy knew he had to find within his heart some passion that was sincere. His wife, he knew that she loved him and that ought to make him love her, but was it really a love strong enough to produce a good tune? He worked on it. He studied her from every angle. He'd adore the nape of her neck. He'd delight in the kink of her nose. He taught himself to feel ecstasies over the little jokes she made he knew really weren't that funny at all. And at last he thought the preparation was over. He wrote a new song. He read it back critically. He priced it apart, put it back together, tweaked the chorus, softened the guitars a bit. He thought about destroying it. And then he realised how much that would hurt him to lose even one note of it. It was finished, his second attempt at love. His previous effort was now ranked at 974. As a composer in the top 1,000, he could bypass the usual registration process. He didn't have to queue. He'd come to the city with his post office forms and his sheet music, and no matter how busy the office, the doors would be flung open wide for him. "Hello, sir," said the clerk, "and welcome." The clerk fed the new song into the computer. The computer whirred, but it didn't ping, it blunted. "Oh," said the clerk, checking his readout, much surprised. "Well, better luck next time," and took the song from the feeder tray and shredded it before the young composer's eyes. Maybe his love had been too clean. He hadn't fought hard enough for it. He began to have affairs. Nothing major at first, just the odd grope with lucky-looking women in the back of pubs. Seeking further inspiration, he moved on to afternoon trysts, and then evening trysts, and then weekend trysts. A 5-day fling with identical blonde twins provoked him to compose a 7.5-minute ballad. The computer rejected it, as it did all his other songs. The doors of the office were still flung open wide for him, but with markedly less enthusiasm. His wife left him. She said that she no longer knew him. She said that maybe she never had. He wrote a song about how that made him feel. The computer didn't care. His daddy died, quite suddenly, of a heart attack. There was no warning. His mummy, who had never raised a voice to him, who had bought him a radio and made him tuna sandwiches, told him that his father had been so appalled by the way he treated his wife that the shame had killed him. The composer cried for days. He wept it all out into a new song. The computer barely gave it a blip, let alone the much-sought ping. The clerk started the readout and said yes. The computer could see the composer in question was upset, and he offered him its condolences. That didn't mean he'd written a good song. One day, a bar pianist in Portugal hit the news. Afonso Gutierrez had been playing his own songs to customers as they ate their tapas, and had been persuaded by concerned friends to take a selection of his work for registration. Only have taken one disgruntled diner unhappy with a calamari to shop him. He offered 14 songs, 8 were rejected, but still left an unprecedented 6 that were accepted automatically by the Lisbon computer. The pianist was 34 years old, but in spite of that still held as a new Wunderkind, a new Mozart. All 6 of the songs ranked higher than our composer's effort, which now came to rest at a precarious 997. The composer knew he needed a new song into the canon quickly before he lost his placing altogether, and for the next few nights worked hard on his latest masterpiece. He pushed and prodded at all of his feelings, dredging his heart for something which might sound beautiful. But it was too late. By the time he took his new work into the city, everything had changed. Fired up by his success, Gutierrez had returned to his bar and written up for submission a further 58 of the songs he'd scribbled away over the years, and all 58 were accepted. When our composer reached the office, he found he now had to queue, like everybody else, had to take a ticket and wait his turn. When he at last reached a cubicle, tired and angry, it was only to find that his childhood success had been erased, deleted from the computer, wiped from the world's iPods. The clerk apologised. He fed the new song into the computer. It was rejected. He vowed he'd never write music again. He needed a career, something permanent, something he could commit to. He applied for a job at the local McDonald's. McDonald's was a fast food chain specialising in burgers and the 606th best in the world. And he worked hard there. He began the week as a mere team member, but by Thursday he was team leader. He had 5 gold stars on his name badge and he was on a roll. Everyone was in awe. They'd never seen anyone scale the ladder of convenience food industry so quickly. He was astonishing, a Wunderkind. He loved his job. He flipped the burgers and wiped the tables and gave service with a smile. This was something he was good at. The restaurant played an endless stream of Muzak, simplified versions of the love songs he'd once admired and competed with. And sometimes they played Gutierrez. One day the televisions all reported breaking news. The world had a new best love song. Now, nothing composed in the last 50 years had even made it near the top 10. There was something so established about those classics that was just hard to beat. But the latest from Afonso Gutierrez had taken the #1 spot, knocking down into second place some ditty by Verdi. Always trying to shy away from publicity, Gutierrez had only reluctantly agreed to a TV interview in which he mumbled in broken English, he was pleased people liked his song.